everyone! So today Crystal and I, in celebration of our July Strange and Unusual box, are going to be bringing you some recommendations based on that theme. So the books we're going to show you today are a little bit odd, a little bit out there, but also really good, so let's get into it. So the first book I'm going to talk about today is Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future by A.S. King. Now, most of A.S. King's books are quite strange, but I really enjoyed this one, but it's probably the most bizarre. This is about Gloria O'Brien, who lost her mother to suicide at 4 years old, and now she's kind of lived her life wondering if this is going to be her fate as well. She is best friends with a girl who is in this kind of like cult-like situation, very religious, and one day they are hanging out and they mix a petrified bat with the beer they're drinking, and after she ingests this, all of a sudden Glory can both see the future, like visions of the future, and of like the ancient past. And all of these visions she's seeing, she's writing down to like make a history of the future. So it is very bizarre. The future she sees is this kind of like dystopian, there's like a tyrant leader, it's very like a story within the story. I really enjoyed reading this book, I flew through it, but it is quite strange.
So my first book today is Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This is a story about the Blighton Summer Detective Group, which is basically a Scooby-Doo gang, right down to the fact that they have a little dog. They solve mysteries in their small mining town in Oregon, but this story takes place 13 years after their last case of unmasking their, villain. But all of them are dealing with their past memories and demons in different types of ways, but there's something about their last case that's pulling them back to that small town, and they're about to get together for the first time since then. Once back in Oregon, they head out to Sleepy Lake in the creepy DeWitt mansion, and that's where things just start to get weird. I don't even know what to tell you. There's supernatural elements, there's science fiction type things in here, there's tentacle demon spawn that come out of the water. It's all very bizarre, but I couldn't stop reading this. I just kept turning page after page, and it was just creepy, but absolutely satisfying. So after enjoying Meddling Kids, I ended up finding Edgar Cantero's previous book, The Supernatural Enhancements, for $7, so I could not turn it down. I haven't read this yet, but it sounds really spooky and is written in document form, kind of like the Illuminate files, so I think it's going to be a really cool experience to read.
So the next book I'm going to recommend is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is very much an adult novel, so be warned, but this book follows Shadow, who is released from prison a little bit early when he finds out that his wife has been killed in a car accident. Immediately after being released, he runs into a man named Mr. Wednesday, who kind of hires him to be his assistant in a way, and they go through this journey across America. So in this world, you explore people who have moved to America, who have brought in the gods from their homelands with them, and what happens to those gods once the people have forgotten them. And they kind of become almost these mortal beings with different lives. It's very bizarre, but this novel is super cool. If you like adult books, this is definitely one to pick up.
So my next book is Undermajordomo Minor by Patrick DeWitt, and I don't even know where to begin with this book. It's just weird. It's a bizarre fantasy story about this guy named Lucy Minor who leaves his small town to take up a position as the Undermajordomo at the creepy Castle Von Ox. While in his new position as Undermajordomo, he meets some really interesting characters. He uncovers some really dark secrets about the Baron, and he also falls in love. I read this book quite a while ago, but there are definitely some scenes and some funny conversations that have stuck with me all this time, and I find that's what I love best about Patrick DeWitt's writing. He pretty much paints a picture and makes you feel like you're there, and I just want to revisit this world even though it's extremely bizarre. I definitely want to point out that this is an adult book. It definitely includes some adult themes and can get pretty grim.
Next up, I have The Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza by Shaun Hutchinson. This book follows Elena, who is the product of a virgin birth, but this birth has been explained by science. But at the very beginning of this novel, she's at Starbucks, and the girl she has a crush on gets shot, and she is somehow able to mysteriously heal this gunshot wound. And after she does this healing, the person who shot the girl in the first place mysteriously just vanishes into the sky. So it's very bizarre. And after this event, Elena is then able to heal more people, but every time she heals somebody, people just disappear from the face of the earth. So it's kind of an exploration of if she should use this power, is she guilty of murdering these people? What's happening? It's very bizarre, it's very out there, but I loved it.
The next book on my list is More Than This by Patrick Ness. I loved this book. Every time I thought it was becoming one thing, it became something completely different, and it really keeps you on your toes. In the first few pages, our main character Seth drowns, and when he opens his eyes, he's somewhere completely different yet familiar. And you soon find out that he's back in his small English town where he grew up before moving to America. He ends up finding his old childhood home and within it a coffin, and he soon meets another boy and girl in the town who also remember dying and waking up in coffins. Enter the driver, a mysterious black van that drives around this town that the other two children tell him to avoid at all costs. I don't want to say too much about this because the great thing about it is trying to uncover the story and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. It's definitely a page turner, it's creepy, it's suspenseful, and it's intriguing. I definitely recommend you give it a try.
Next up, I have 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. Now, this novel starts with Hermes, the gods Hermes and Apollo, granting human consciousness to a pack of 15 dogs. And they kind of take a bet on what the outcome of this is going to be. Now, it's really, really interesting. It's set in Canada, and it kind of explores the dogs who want to keep like the old dog ways and the dogs who are embracing change, and it's the exploration of human consciousness and what that means, and it's really, really, really well done. It's a short novel, strange novel, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I encourage you to pick it up.
And finally is The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge by M.T. Anderson and Eugene Yelchin. I think I've talked about this book in a couple past videos, but every time I think about it, I remember something new. So this is a story about Spurge, an elfin historian who is sent on a mission to the Goblin Kingdom to deliver a precious artifact back to the goblins and also to spy on their enemy. In the Goblin Kingdom, he's greeted by their historical archivist named Warfel, who wants nothing more than to show Spurge a good time. And he really proves that goblins aren't really the enemies, they're actually really nice and just like him. In this book, the Goblin Kingdom is beautifully yet oddly illustrated, and it includes so many weird, bizarre creatures that you couldn't even possibly imagine on your own. My favorite is Becky. She's Warfel's pet, and she is part bat, part cuttlefish, and it sounds really gross. But as the story goes on, you actually love her and want one for your very own. And that's what I really loved about this book. It's strange and it's creepy and it's weird, but it really has a lot of heart. It's a really wonderful friendship story set in a strange and unusual place. I definitely recommend picking this up when it comes out in September.
So the last book I want to recommend is definitely a very strange one, and that is Griffin and Sabine by Nick Bantock. Now, I read this way back in high school, and it is so cool. So this is an epistolary book, which means it's told in postcards and letters, and it is just full of this like gorgeous art. So you're actually like you're reading in a correspondence between these two people, Griffin and Sabine. So the very first postcard in this book is a postcard from Sabine to Griffin, and Griffin has no idea who Sabine is, but she seems to know everything about him, including like minute details that nobody could possibly know. So it is this like mysterious Griffin trying to figure out who she is, and it is so beautiful. So I just want to show you. So you actually like pull out letters from the novel, and you can like open them. So you're actually like reading their whole correspondence, and it's just really, really cool. This is a whole series of books. I believe there's 6 of them, and I just love them. If you haven't read them yet, you should definitely pick them up.
All right, so those were some strange and unusual books that we enjoyed. If you've read any of these or have some other recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below. As usual, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome.
Bye!